The content around Magic the Gathering's competitive sphere is changing again, with Star City Games kind of softly announcing a shift in content strategy. I wanted to address the situation around coverage, content, written articles, video articles, and just how the landscape is changing as a casual spike, a competitive grinder for the folks that don't really care about Commander being the front face of everything and buying every single secret lair. Although there isn't necessarily a problem with all of that in a vacuum, there is a place for competitive Magic, and there should continue to be. It's just the avenues to explore this are different now. The ways that we should promote this stuff and really push it to the forefront to get viewers watching it is different. And I think there is a little bit of give and take in how Star City Games has been approaching this. They've been kind of, the forefront of the Star City Games channel, Fireball, a lot of places that you would go to for all you Magic boomers out there that would think to read articles, I think is a thing of the past in many ways. I would bring this to the medium of what I would call the TikTokification of all content. How a lot of the media that we consume nowadays are kind of short form and kind of caught into 10-second bits. It's like Vine oversimplified in many ways. And I think what's going on here is that it's not that the written content is necessarily bad, and I think a lot of authors out there should be praised for a lot of the competitive Magic and a lot of the information that they provided to competitive Magic, kind of growing the game in general. I'm thinking of your Corey Baumisters and your Apollo PVDDRs and everything. Like, a lot of these great players and interactors of the game have written these articles and created content that has improved the game. It's just the content landscape has changed. The way we make content, the content that people are watching, especially right now, the meta is just EDH content. I think a lot of people have seen it or talked about in my comments how there has been an uptick in EDH on the channel. I mean, my shorts are now primarily just EDH, and that's just me playing the meta. Although I am primarily a constructed player, I see the drop in constructed content. Heck, I don't even follow a lot of Magic the Gathering channels because honestly, I don't want to be inundated with Commander content myself. The few channels I do follow have very great, fantastic constructed content as well. And that's kind of what I wanted to address here. Talk about like why this has happened and maybe provide a framing perspective to a lot of you, maybe Magic boomers out there looking at my general YouTube audience. A lot of you tend to be males primarily that are above the age of 20 and below the age of like 35, like somewhere within that range. And I think that means on average, you're probably like older in that sense. You've been playing Magic for a very long time. Me, as a 28-year-old, I've been playing Magic ever since Theros. It's been over 10 years of Magic, and I've seen it change. And whether that's for the better or worse is really up for us to figure out here. So let's hop right into a tweet from Ryan Overturf. Ryan in this tweet says, Star City Games is shifting their content strategy, and a consequence of this is today's article will be my last published on the site. My feelings on this are complicated, but in addition to sadness for closing this chapter, I found some closure and excitement for what's next. So this article talking about Magic Cube and everything. By the way, cubing, definitely one of the most goated formats out there. I mean, Vintage Cube is just kind of like the kind of peak of that, just kind of getting the power of what peak Magic really should be out of something of a curated experience. Definitely one of those better formats. But in general, thank you in advance for giving my stuff a read one last time. I want to give a major shout out to Cedric Phillips. He was one of the ones that hired me for commentary, and he made the 540 happen, and he set me up for success with the content plan for writing about Cube. I owe him a lot and anything I've created in this space. So Todd Anderson even has said, I have thoughts and feelings about this, and I'll say that you're great. And I often recommend your two-bird ideas and articles to casuals, kind of talking about this stinks and like an understatement to a content overhaul, and just kind of talking about some of the history of this. I mean, also want to shout out Alex Ullman, like a member of the Pauper format panel, one of the very few people whose articles like I actually do browse every so often as a Pauper player. Like, I think there is a very big lack of Pauper content out there, good Pauper content, I should say. There's Pauper content out there, good Pauper content. Alex is definitely one of the peaks of there. But this is kind of in relation to one of the previous announcements of Star City Games changing their content strategy. If some of you remember way back in 2022, kind of us coming off of the pandemic and the big shift in digital content and the lack of physical play, Tournament Magic seeing a big hit. I mean, we were seeing issues where, like Pioneer and everything was really going downhill and everything. And now Pioneer's in a much better place now, regardless of your ideas around like Phoenix and banned and restricted announcements, there is a big problem with the situation with like inverter and how the pandemic is really like exacerbating all of that. And in this article, like by Pete and everything, kind of talking about like the change in direction, a little bit of mention of where Cedric is going. And we had a lot of shift in people like Todd Anderson. I don't know why I keep getting this like virus detection thing. I don't know. All right. Like, just bear with me on that in the video here. Todd Anderson, after 12 years kind of writing, you know, being kind of let go, free agent, PVDDR, also going to be a free agent here. Corey Baumeister, who's many of you have probably seen on like, you know, different Commander videos and different like 1v1 videos, and just like a very big like person in the content sphere and everything. Just a very big personality, a lot of them kind of being changed over. And I think there are some good aspects to take out of this, like where written content may have changed over time. And especially now we're going to see a big shift in the written content. We are definitely going to be seeing a big uptick in the content around Constructed Magic, because with the Spotlight series being announced, a big thing that a lot of people missed was in this small section. Additionally, there will be live coverage of video on both days of the Magic Spotlight main events. We'll have more details on how to tune in the event in the future. So hopefully they pick like the right, you know, kind of avenues for that. And in terms of like exploring the right live platforms, like, you know, Twitch versus YouTube, and kind of how they promote ads. And like, you know, there's this whole discussions previously about how they used to boost up their numbers and kind of lie with like putting in like embedded links into different websites and how that would count as a view, whereas like someone may not actually be viewing the video, it just kind of auto plays on like an article, and so that doesn't really count. So we'll see how they actually get viewership for the Spotlight series. But in general, what I really wanted to touch base on is like with this kind of shift in content strategy, and this is where kind of the whole personal opinion part of it comes out, but maybe it's time that we move away from the written article. And before you get your pitchforks out, this is more so an open discussion section about like the way people consume content these days. And again, going back onto the whole like TikTokification of things, I don't think people are really around for like articles and like reading things. I think a lot more people are looking at different ways to engage with content in a way that's very, you know, like very convenient. In that way, we see the rise of like ebooks and just kind of listening and podcasts and all that stuff. They want things that they can listen to. They want things that are extremely accessible in terms of how they get it, and written articles just aren't that. There's a lot to parse through. Sometimes they're too short and they don't provide the information you need. Sometimes they're too long and they don't, you know, they don't get to the point. There's a lot of problems with getting sideboard content, getting mainboard content. Like, there's so many issues with written articles, in my opinion, that because of a lack of accessibility, I think a lot of this information can be translated to the video sphere, which is why a lot of times you see me kind of talking about a lot of this stuff on the like a kind of free form on these videos, and without like kind of putting up a bunch of fancy graphics, unless I want to, unless there's some type of meme to be had. I think written articles, I think the content in them are fantastic. I think there's a lot of great information to be had. I think they just need to be translated to a better medium. I think we need to move past some of the skills that we have and adapt some of these skills that we have as authors, as writers, and maybe co-opt them to other mediums and kind of provide them there. Maybe do short form content, do videos like this, and engage people in different ways, but also keep to the written content, because I think there is a space as a supplementary piece, as an additional piece, as a place in a description, as a piece underneath the video. There's so many places where written content still has a place in Magic. I think we just need to, again, adapt, evolve, and add it as an additional piece. I think that's what Star City Games' ultimate content strategy should be, an adaptation of that. And I think we see that with the hyper editing or the hyper focus around highly edited Magic content. And we see this with like the game nightification of Magic, like kind of live gameplay, where Commander gameplay has really evolved to a crazy place. It's really hard to become like a Magic like live paper gameplay channel without a lot of editing because of the quality that exists out there. And it's happened with Commander with like a lot of channels out there that are just posting their like live streams of their Twitch chats. Those channels aren't necessarily getting like hundreds of thousands of views or tens of thousands of views, or heck, even thousands of views. They're getting like hundreds, if not tens of views, which isn't great for the algorithm. Like, yeah, you're a content creator, but you're not necessarily growing in that sense. And that's kind of unfortunate, because a lot of that content is actually great. It's just that it's not like hyper edited. It's not, you know, it doesn't have that whole Mr. Beast like crazy changes every 5 seconds and everything. It doesn't grab the attention of the Zoomers that have their brains melted through TikTok. You see this in paper 1v1 gameplay with channels such as Card Market and Andrea Mengucci's like kind of 1v1 competitive channel, where there are kind of cards up on the screen. We do zooms to each person and then an overlay of the battlefield and everything, constant cuts, constant changes, grabbing opinions and different things. And that is where the current Magic content sphere is at. You're either making commander content, or you could be live streaming a bunch of competitive play, or you're making something that's engaging in terms of like a talking head or being informative. So where does that land, this shift in content strategy for written articles? Honestly, I think it just needs to be adapted. I think there are a lot of great things still to be said and will be said by these writers, by these people making these articles. I just think it needs to just be leveled up a little bit. It's nothing to say that, again, these folks have their voices, they have great opinions, and they have a great knowledge of Magic. We just need to move past just written articles. We need to adapt to the changing landscape of the new players coming into Magic through maybe things like the Universes Beyond sets, and actually provide an avenue for these folks to not just be brought into what we liked as boomers, as Magic boomers, but maybe into what the new era of Magic player actually wants to engage with.